Before you continue listening, take a moment to slow down. Place your hand gently over your heart and take a calm, deep breath. Allow yourself to become fully present with this moment, because what you are about to hear is not just a simple message. It may be the reminder your heart has been quietly waiting for. If this message appeared in your life today, do not ignore it as something meaningless. Sometimes certain words reach us only when we are finally ready to understand them. There may be a reason your emotions have felt deeper recently. There may be a reason certain memories return when you least expect them. Somewhere someone may still be carrying thoughts about you that they have never found the courage to express. And now, life may be creating the right moment for a conversation that has been delayed for too long. Someone important may be preparing to step closer with something they have been holding inside for a long time. Take one more slow breath before continuing, because this message is not meant to feel ordinary. If you are hearing these words right now, perhaps your heart is ready to receive a truth you have been waiting for. There is someone, whether they are still connected to your life, or someone who once walked away, who thinks about you more than you realize. They may have stayed quiet. They may have created distance. From the outside, it may have seemed like they completely moved on. But beneath that silence, something has been changing inside them. A feeling they tried to ignore has continued growing stronger. Soon, this person may feel drawn to come toward you. It will not feel like just another random conversation or a simple meeting. It may happen because the emotions they have been carrying have become too difficult to keep hidden. There is something they have wanted to say, something they have kept locked away, and they may finally feel ready to reveal it. What they share with you could surprise you in ways you never expected. There are some connections in life that seem difficult to explain. Time can pass. Distance can separate two people. Silence can last for a very long period. Yet some emotional bonds continue to remain alive beneath everything that happens on the surface. They can survive misunderstandings, pride, and moments of separation. Maybe recently you have noticed strange reminders of this person appearing in your life. Maybe their memory suddenly came into your mind without warning. Maybe you heard their name somewhere unexpectedly. Maybe they appeared in your dreams, and the feeling stayed with you long after you woke up. Or perhaps you experienced a sudden wave of emotion that seemed to come from nowhere. Many people simply call these moments coincidences. Others see them as signs that certain connections still hold emotional meaning. Whether you believe these moments come from intuition, memories, or something deeper, there is no denying the impact they can have on the heart. Sometimes unfinished emotions continue asking for attention. Sometimes a chapter that seemed closed still has something left to reveal. And when the same feelings continue returning again and again, it makes you wonder if something important is still waiting ahead. Stay with this message, because the next part may explain why someone who walked away may still be carrying your presence in their thoughts. Before they ever thought about reaching out, they tried everything possible to push these feelings away. They stayed busy. They focused on other things. They filled their days with distractions so they would not have to face what was happening inside. They told themselves that they had accepted everything. They convinced themselves that moving forward was the only option. But when the noise disappeared and they were alone with their thoughts, one memory kept returning: you. No matter how much they tried to avoid it, your presence continued finding its way back into their mind. Certain conversations replayed. Certain moments became clearer. Certain feelings they thought had disappeared started becoming impossible to ignore. Because emotions that are never expressed do not always disappear. Sometimes they quietly grow stronger until they create a pressure that can no longer be contained. That is why this meeting may feel like something that has been building for a long time. It is not only about missing someone. It is about finally accepting something that was difficult to admit. Deep inside, they may be realizing that the connection mattered more than they allowed themselves to believe. From the outside, this person may look completely normal. They may appear confident. They may seem happy. They may even look like someone who has moved on without any regrets. But appearances rarely show the complete story. Inside, they may have been fighting a quiet emotional battle that very few people around them understand. They may revisit the memories you shared. They may remember your voice, your smile, your reactions, and the small details they once overlooked. Things that felt simple in the moment may now carry a completely different meaning. They may find themselves asking difficult questions. Why do I still feel this way? Why has it been so hard to truly let go? Why does no one else create the same feeling? These questions have slowly pushed them toward an uncomfortable realization. The truth is that you may have meant much more to them than they were willing to accept. And perhaps the hardest part for them is understanding that the distance between you was not only caused by circumstances. They may be recognizing their own mistakes. They may be realizing they did not value the connection enough when they had the opportunity. That awareness can bring regret, because sometimes people understand the importance of something only after they experience its absence. You may ask yourself, if they truly feel all of this, why did they stay silent for so long? Why did they not speak sooner? The answer may not be because they did not care. Sometimes silence comes from fear, fear of rejection, fear of vulnerability, fear of admitting feelings that make a person feel exposed. They may have wanted to reach out many times but stopped themselves at the last moment. They may have imagined different outcomes and convinced themselves to wait. The heart can recognize something long before the mind is ready to accept it. And when someone has spent a long time protecting themselves emotionally, opening that door again can feel frightening. They may have been fighting between what they feel and what they fear, but eventually feelings that are deeply rooted become harder to hide. The distance that once felt safe can begin to feel painful. The silence that once protected them can begin to feel heavier than the truth they have been avoiding. And that is when a person begins to consider taking the step they once thought was impossible. They were afraid of being rejected. They were afraid of finding out that your life had continued moving forward without them. They were afraid of seeing how strong you had become, how independent you were, and how you might no longer need their presence the way you once did. More than anything, they were afraid of facing the choices they made, and the moments they wished they could go back and change. Staying silent felt safer than opening a conversation they were not prepared to handle. As long as they said nothing, they could avoid the pain of accepting their own mistakes. But silence does not remove emotions. It only hides them for a while. With every passing day, the truth they refused to speak became heavier inside them. What once felt like a way to protect themselves slowly became a source of emotional pressure. The distance they created started hurting more than the conversation they were avoiding. Eventually, they reached a point where staying quiet no longer gave them comfort. Instead, it reminded them of everything they had left unfinished. And that is when they began to understand that sometimes the hardest conversation is also the one that brings the greatest relief. Keep listening, because the next part reveals the moment when everything inside them began to change. Recently, something happened that shifted their entire perspective. It may not have been a dramatic event. It could have been something very simple. Maybe they saw something that reminded them of you. Maybe they heard your name unexpectedly. Maybe they learned something about your life and realized how much had changed. Or maybe they were surrounded by people, yet still felt a strange emptiness they could not explain. Whatever the moment was, it touched a part of them they had been trying to ignore for a long time. Suddenly one thought became impossible to escape. If I never tell the truth, I may carry this regret forever. This realization was not created by a temporary emotion or a sudden impulse. It came from a deeper understanding that hiding their feelings was becoming more painful than expressing them. They started realizing that avoiding the truth did not make the connection disappear. It only delayed the moment when they would have to face it. And somewhere inside, they knew they could not keep running from what their heart had already accepted. This conversation may not be just a simple exchange of words. It may not be only about asking how life has been, or pretending everything is normal. They may come because there are things they have carried for too long, things they never found the courage to say, the emotions they covered with distance, the regrets they kept hidden behind silence, the feelings they hoped would fade with time, but somehow remained stronger than before. For a long time you may have believed they were cold, uninterested, or completely unaffected by what happened between you. But the truth may be that they were dealing with emotions they never knew how to express. They cared more deeply than their actions showed. They felt more than they admitted. Their silence was not always a sign that they did not care. Sometimes silence comes from someone who feels too much, but does not know how to communicate it. Behind their hesitation were fears, doubts, and walls they had built around themselves. Understanding this may completely change the way you look back at the distance between you. What seemed like indifference may have been an internal battle they were fighting quietly. The truth they have been holding inside is something they have repeated in their mind many times. They have imagined this conversation again and again. They have thought about what they would say, how you might respond, what questions you might ask, and whether you would even want to hear them anymore. They have pictured different endings. They have wondered if you would forgive them, or if you would simply walk away. Even after imagining it countless times, they still cannot predict what will happen when the real moment arrives. But one thing has become clear to them. They cannot continue pretending everything is fine. They would rather face uncertainty than spend more years wondering what could have happened if they had only been honest. The words they want to express may be simple, but saying them requires courage. I was wrong. I did not appreciate what we had the way I should have. I did not understand how to love you in the way you truly deserved. For someone who spent so much time protecting their pride, admitting these things can feel incredibly difficult. It means lowering their defenses. It means accepting responsibility. It means allowing themselves to be seen without excuses. Sometimes, losing someone reveals their value in a way that being close never did. When a person is always there, it can become easy to overlook the small things that make them special. Their kindness, their patience, their support, their presence. But when that person is no longer within reach, the absence creates a silence that cannot be ignored. That is what may have been happening inside them. Time gave them a different perspective. Distance allowed them to notice what they once failed to appreciate. They began remembering the qualities that made you different. The peace you brought into their life, the comfort they felt around you, the way you listened when others did not, the loyalty you offered without expecting anything in return. They may now understand that what they had with you was not something ordinary. It was something valuable that they did not fully recognize until they experienced what life felt like without it. And sometimes the biggest lessons arrive after something important has already slipped away. Stay with this message, because the next moment reveals what they may finally be ready to admit after all this time. Your kindness was never something you showed just to create an impression. It came from a genuine place. Your care was real. Your support was sincere. And as they continued moving through life, they slowly began noticing something they could not ignore. They started comparing new experiences and new connections to what they once had with you. Again and again they felt that something was missing. Not because every other person was unable to bring happiness, but because the bond they shared with you had a level of depth they only understood after it was gone. They began realizing that what existed between you was not just another relationship or a temporary moment in their story. It was something rare, something meaningful, something many people spend years hoping to find but never truly experience. The more time passed, the clearer this became. They understood that they had walked away from something valuable, something that carried a kind of emotional connection they could not easily replace. And that realization changed the way they looked at everything that came afterward. As much as they want to see you again, a part of them is still deeply afraid. Because returning means facing everything they avoided for so long. Once the truth is spoken, there is no hiding behind silence anymore. They know that honesty can change everything. They know there is a possibility you may not respond the way they hope. They may face rejection. They may discover that you have already built a completely different life without them. They may have to accept that the ending they feared has already happened. But despite all these fears, they have started understanding something important. The pain of never knowing is sometimes heavier than the pain of hearing an answer they do not want. Carrying endless questions, regrets, and what-ifs can become exhausting. That is why they are beginning to choose courage over comfort. They are realizing that avoiding the truth may protect them for a moment, but it cannot give them the peace they truly need. Stay with this message, because what comes next reveals what you need to remember before this meeting happens. This moment is not only about their emotions, it is also about your own journey. You are not the same person you were before. Life has changed you. The challenges you faced have shaped you. The difficult moments taught you lessons you could not have learned any other way. You have become stronger, more aware, and more emotionally balanced than before. Because of that growth, do not enter this situation from a place of waiting or needing a certain outcome. Enter it with peace and clarity. Listen to what they say, but do not allow words alone to control your emotions. Beautiful promises can create hope, but real change is always proven through behavior. Watch how they show up. Notice whether their actions match their words. Pay attention to consistency, effort, and responsibility. Someone can speak about regret, but true growth is visible through the way they treat you after the conversation ends. Forgiveness can be powerful, but trust should be rebuilt through actions. Remember this. The truth is not only found in what someone says, it is also revealed by what they choose to do. When this meeting finally happens, something about the moment may feel different. It may not feel like an ordinary conversation between two people who once knew each other. There may be a strange sense of familiarity, as if both of you understand the importance of the moment before any words are exchanged. The world around you may seem quieter, time may feel slower, small details may suddenly feel more meaningful. A look, a pause, or a simple expression may communicate emotions that words cannot fully explain. Whether you see this as timing, emotional connection, or simply two people finally facing something unfinished, the moment may carry a powerful weight. It is not only about remembering the past, it is about understanding what that past means now. This conversation may represent the end of one emotional chapter and the beginning of another, but what happens after that will not depend only on feelings. It will depend on the choices both people make. Once honesty finally enters the room, when you see each other again, you may feel the emotions before the conversation even begins. The atmosphere may carry everything that has remained unspoken for so long. There may be nervousness, anticipation, and moments where silence speaks louder than words. Some things that were hidden for months or years may finally come into the open. This meeting is not only about bringing two people together again, it is about bringing truth into a place where confusion once existed. Sometimes a conversation like this creates a new beginning built on understanding, maturity, and honesty. Other times it gives two people the closure they needed to finally move forward peacefully. Either way, the purpose is the same: to reveal what was hidden, to release what was carried silently, to allow both hearts to finally understand what was real. After holding these feelings inside for so long, there is one truth they may no longer be able to deny. They never completely stopped caring about you. They tried to convince themselves that they had moved on. They filled their schedule with work. They created new routines. They surrounded themselves with distractions. Maybe they even opened themselves to new connections, hoping something else would replace what they lost. They believed that enough time would eventually erase the emotions they carried. But some feelings do not disappear simply because we choose not to face them. They remain quietly beneath the surface, returning during moments of silence. They appear when memories come back unexpectedly. They return when the heart finally becomes still enough to recognize what it has been trying to say. Eventually, pretending becomes more difficult than accepting the truth. Now they may be ready to admit what they avoided for so long. Not because they know exactly what will happen next, but because continuing to hide their feelings has become impossible. Whatever happens after this conversation, one thing is certain: something will shift. Life will not return to exactly the way it was before. Maybe this moment opens a door to a new beginning, one built with greater understanding, honesty, and emotional maturity. Maybe it becomes the conversation that finally releases both of you from unanswered questions and old pain. Both possibilities carry meaning, because unfinished emotions often remain in the heart until they are finally acknowledged. When truth is spoken, uncertainty begins to lose its power. The confusion starts to fade. A sense of peace begins to replace the questions that once remained unanswered. Sometimes healing happens through coming back together. Sometimes healing happens through accepting what was and choosing a new path. Both forms of healing matter, and sometimes the most important thing is not the outcome itself, but the freedom that comes when the truth is finally brought into the light. If this conversation finally happens, give them the space to express everything they have been holding inside. Do not rush to interrupt. Do not immediately react based on the first few words you hear. Allow them to finish their thoughts, and let the full truth come forward before deciding what it means for you. Listen carefully, not only to the sentences they speak, but also to the emotion behind those words. Notice their honesty. Notice their effort. Notice whether they are truly taking responsibility or simply trying to escape discomfort. And when your moment comes to respond, choose calm over a sudden emotional reaction. Your peace is more powerful than any response created by anger, fear, or old pain. You do not need to make every decision instantly. Give yourself the time and space to understand what feels right for your heart, your boundaries, and the person you have become through everything you have experienced. Remember, you have changed. You have grown. The version of you standing here today is not the same person who once waited for answers. Above everything else, remember this important truth. You are not standing in this moment because life is trying to challenge your strength. You are standing here because you are being given something many people spend years searching for: understanding the truth. Whether that truth creates a new beginning, brings recognition, provides closure, or leads you toward a completely different path, it still gives you something valuable: peace. You survived the silence that once made you question your worth. You carried yourself through moments of confusion, disappointment, and uncertainty. You continued growing even when you did not have all the answers. You healed parts of yourself that once felt impossible to repair. Never forget how much strength it took to reach this point. Whatever happens next, do not allow one conversation to make you forget the journey that brought you here. The strength you have today was built through every difficult moment you thought you would not overcome. Before this message comes to an end, take a quiet moment and ask yourself something important. What did these words awaken inside you? Did they bring you hope? Did they bring you peace? Did they make you reflect on something you have been carrying for a long time? Or did they simply give you a feeling of clarity that you have been searching for? Sometimes life does not reveal answers because it wants to bring someone back into your world. Sometimes answers arrive because they are meant to reconnect you with yourself. They help you find the parts of your heart that became hidden beneath disappointment, unanswered questions, and emotional struggles. Many people believe clarity must come from another person's explanation, apology, or action. But the deepest clarity often begins within you. It appears when you finally recognize your own value, when you understand your own strength, when you see the lessons hidden inside experiences that once only felt painful. Stay with this thought, because this next part may change the way you look at your past forever. If you have spent a long time wondering why someone entered your life, why they left, or why certain feelings still remain, remember this: not every meaningful connection is created to end in the way we expect. Some people come into our lives to awaken something within us. They encourage us to grow. They reveal emotions we never knew existed. They challenge us to become stronger, wiser, and more aware of who we truly are. Even the relationships that caused pain can become powerful teachers when we stop seeing them only as losses and start recognizing the growth they created. A difficult chapter does not mean the entire story was meaningless. Sometimes the moments that break our hearts are also the moments that rebuild our understanding of ourselves. The connection you experienced mattered because it was real to you. Your emotions were genuine because you truly felt them. The fact that circumstances changed does not erase the meaning those moments had. Feelings can be honest even when the future does not unfold the way we imagined. Never convince yourself that you created the entire story in your mind just because things changed. After heartbreak, many people look back and begin questioning themselves. They tell themselves they were foolish. They believe they misunderstood every sign. They convince themselves they cared too much or gave too much. But having a sincere heart is not a weakness. Allowing yourself to love, trust, and connect deeply is not something to be ashamed of. It means you had the courage to experience something fully, instead of protecting yourself from every possibility of pain. Emotional openness is not a mistake. It is a reflection of your ability to care deeply. In a world where many people hide what they feel, choosing honesty with your emotions is a form of strength. Your heart was never the problem because it felt deeply. Your heart simply showed you what mattered. Feelings are not something that need to be destroyed or ignored. They are messages that reveal what we value, what we desire, and what has touched our lives in meaningful ways. Feeling deeply does not make you weak. It shows that you have the courage to connect, to love, and to give something genuine. And that is a strength that should never be forgotten.